By that out, you would think that it would be Eubank in the black trunks and deGale in the white, but it's vice versa, as James deGale likes to say, as we get things started here. Again, no love lost between these two, but all of that aside, a quintessential crossroads contest. deGale said if he cannot beat Eubank, he will retire. Eubank looking for his signature victory.
Eubank Jr. would like to use smart pressure, as he said it, to try and get after James deGale, and we'll see if he can do that.
deGale fighting from the southpaw stance, and of course one of the two losses came against Billy Joe Saunders, a fellow southpaw that Eubank suffered, but against George Groves, he was simply outclassed.
Yeah, Grove was able to box at range, and already deGale switching. I was just about to say,
he does do that a lot.
He will switch to righty occasionally. It'll be interesting to see how much he does that in this fight.
And to just distill it to its most basic form, all of the pundits talking about the fact that deGale, the supreme technician, that Eubank is the athlete, has power, and will continue to come forward. What else do you look for early as Eubank got tagged with that straight left?
Well, the straight left we talked about for deGale, a very important punch. And I think that does distill it down, although there are some other nuances to it. And James deGale thinks that he can be an attacker on occasion as well. We'll find out.
And that is the danger, though, for many people who are in the deGale fan club, is that they don't advise him to get into a pitched battle with a guy like Eubank. And, of course, as the fights progress in the past, we've seen that deGale mentally has taken breaks. He wants to avoid the ropes at all costs, as you allude to, Al, and thus far doing a good job of being the gentleman center of the ring. Final minute of the opening round.
Neither man has really used the jab that much. We would expect deGale to use it a little more.
Last weekend I called the biggest grudge match in British MMA history between Paul Daly and Michael Venom Page. Page has sparred with both deGale and Eubank. Unfortunately, that turned into a tactical affair, and we'll have to see how this grudge match unfolds.
There's a danger of the clash of heads. That's a worry in this fight. And
there's blood already around the left eye of James deGale. And the last time he was cut was against Caleb Truax, and that was a big cut. In the third round, it was a head clash, but ruled a punch.
Been cut in two of his last three. They come together. There it is. Well, somewhere in there, it's a clash of heads. And the blood started that.
This is round number 2. Their common opponent, George Groves, telling our Jim Gray earlier tonight that he picks Chris Eubanks Jr. Of course, we mentioned him outclassing Eubank and beating James deGale early in their respective careers. And man, this is getting ugly quick. It's becoming a wrestling match.
Well, remember his last fight with Caleb Truax, we're seeing several similarities to it, including this wrestling.
And, of course, in that fight, he was also deducted a point was deGale for using the shoulder. Yeah. And Eubank unloading the right hands on deGale.
Excellent.
And the left hook that staggers deGale. Eubank unloading. Chucky trying to hold on. He gets caught again with the right hand. The referee comes in and rules it a knockdown. The second time in his career that deGale has been ruled down. The first time was against Badu Jack in the 12th round of their savage affair. So deGale in trouble early in this contest.
Eubank Jr. would like to be, he's throwing his right hand straighter. And by the way, Eubank Jr. has a little cut around his right eye from the banging of the heads probably. But Eubank Jr. is throwing a better right hand in this fight. It's not so wide.
Again at 168, Eubank has 4 wins, 3 of them via form of knockout, so has brought his power up to 168 pounds. And deGale has tasted it here in the second stanza. Coming up on the final 12th minute of the second round. deGale now just content to clinch, trying to perhaps regain his faculties now as he's being overwhelmed by Eubank.
Well, it's the pressure of Eubank that they thought would be effective. deGale has switched to righty on a couple of occasions, but not effectively.
deGale trying to find the range. On the back foot now, Eubank using some feints. Launches the right hand.
The deGale jab has been completely missing so far in this fight, and I think that would be a very important weapon for him.
There's a couple of right hands over the top as they clinch. Referee warning Eubank about punching during the clinch. And a good round for Chris Eubanks Jr.
Eubank landing a nice straight right hand. There's the right hand that stunned deGale, and he gets a little wobbly here, and then Eubank Jr. going after him.
Left hand on behind the ear.
The left hook sent him against the ropes, and that's why the referee called a knockdown.
Actually, yet to call it.
Actually, not yet,
Nope.
Interestingly enough.
Really, you wonder, where was he down? There's a
yeah.
right cross, but
that's the punch that sent him, and then he does go down to one knee.
On the ropes.
So I thought the knockdown was against the ropes, but actually he did touch his knee, and Alexander called a knockdown.
In James deGale's corner, and deGale now coming out a southpaw, flying to the jab. Eubank also doing the same here as we are in round number 3, scheduled for 12.
deGale is lunging when he throws his straight left
and he
hand.
got caught with the right hand again, backed up momentarily by Eubank. So Eubank's pop is evident here tonight.
His right hand is a very effective weapon, and again, he's throwing it very straight and with a lot of power.
deGale trying to land the jab, gets out of range of the Eubank jab. Oh, and Eubank doing a little trash talking as deGale just launches in.
A very uneven effort so far by deGale in the sense that he's lunging in, he's not throwing his punches, I don't think in a very compact fashion. Look at how he lunges in with the left hand. He's not going to land that punch that way. And he's going to get countered, as he has been with the right hand by Eubank.
We're at the midpoint of the third round, and again, deGale lunges in with the left, and again, Eubank on the clinch, being warned by the referee for punching.
And, of course, Eubank Jr. also punched slightly over the right eye, but that has been a less of a, not quite as dramatic as deGale's cut. When deGale switches to righty, he isn't throwing still isn't throwing the jab, and so it negates the idea of changing.
I have a feeling we're going to see more than just the cuts we've seen thus far, the way they collide, and it's all initiated by deGale.
Yeah, I think you're right. He was lunging in a lot, and that's part of the issue for him, both offensively and it's creating those clashes of heads. Good counter right hand by Chris Eubanks Jr. and a short little right hand on the inside.
Final 30 seconds of the third round, and again deGale more interested in grappling. And shouldn't the referee allow Eubank to punch out now, to punch out of the break? It seems like he's really warning Eubank when Eubank's the guy doing the boxing.
He's coming in there pretty quick, Alexander is.
Another counter right hand by Eubank. And again, deGale unable to navigate the range.
And here in the last round, looking to counter with the right hand, and did it very effectively, Eubank, as deGale lunges in, and that's been a recurring theme in these early rounds.
Instructions telling his son to let his hands go. Eubank, the slight favorite in this fight, and he went public saying that this would not go the 12 rounds, that he would stop James deGale and send deGale into retirement.
So far, he has off to a very big start in this fight for sure. Now, remember, deGale had problems with his shoulder, and they felt that was fixed, and he's able to throw his right hooks, but we haven't seen that punch also in this fight yet.
And in the Caleb Truax fights, he also had issues with Achilles tendonitis, which inhibited his movement, his footwork. He says he quit running, doing a lot of sub-aqua underwater exercises.
Awkward action there.
A low blow.
Chris Eubank trying to shake that off.
So we've seen deGale move and now trying to establish combinations, but unable to really put together anything effectively on. He continues to just lean in and lunge in.
And I'll tell you the punch, I mentioned it in the keys to victory, that we're going to see pretty soon to Eubank. Oh, nice left hand by deGale. Best punch of the fight for him. We will see the Eubank uppercut if deGale continues to do this. But that was a nice straight left by deGale.
And clinching as Eubank throwing right hands to the body. Jab by deGale.
Interestingly, this pace in this round favors deGale because Eubank Jr. not putting on a lot of pressure and giving deGale a chance to kind of initiate some action.
Halfway through round 4. Jab by deGale, so deGale trying to establish the jab again before closing the gap instantly, smothering his own offense.
Subtle differences in this round. I'm not saying it's a dramatic difference, but deGale has steadied himself a bit in this round, and Eubank Jr. has been unable to land that right hand or counter him effectively.
Lead left hook just missed for deGale. But deGale mugging Eubank. Under a minute now remaining in the 4th frame. So we've seen the referee warn Eubank for the punching. Shouldn't he be doing the same thing to deGale for what he's doing in the clinch?
Yeah, well, yeah, I think, and he did allude to, I think, deGale about the holding for a moment or two there, so.
Right hand over the top. Crowd chanting Chunky, trying to rally behind James deGale. There's a right cross by Eubank on the break. deGale on the ropes. Right hand clips. Another right hand lands for Eubank.
Chris Eubank had to take a moment or two. Yeah, that one definitely landing below the belt line and making Eubank Jr. wince. deGale did have some good moments in that round in which he landed a straight left hand. That was the best punch he's thrown probably in this fight. And that was a round in which deGale did very well. But at the end of the round, Jr. really did come on very strongly. And I think this is this period where he started to land some really big shots to both the body and the head. Not everything landing, but enough landing there, I think, to put him in the running to win that round, even though deGale had done well earlier in the round.
Round as we begin this now round 5, scheduled for 12 at 168 pounds. Chris Eubank Jr. looking for his career-defining win, while James deGale wants to prove there is still a lot left in the Olympic gold medalist and former 2-time champion at super middleweight. Our unofficial score tonight is Mr. Al Bernstein, and he has Eubank ahead by 2 points.
Yeah, and at the last round even, I really thought that was as close as you can get.
Straight left hand lands for deGale.
And I'm loath to score an even round, but in that instance I did. Well, it's been rough and tumble, hasn't it?
Maybe this will turn into the biggest MMA grudge match in British history.
You didn't get a great one when you actually called one. Maybe now you're going to get it. This pace is actually better for James deGale, even though we're not sure he's winning rounds here, because Eubank hasn't been able to attack as much as he wants, but deGale hasn't necessarily been able to take advantage of this pace. And now again back to righty deGale. And when he does that, when he jabs, throws hooks as a righty, he's effective, but he doesn't stay in that posture long enough.
Now, you're right. Going back to round 4 and 6, it looks like deGale, with this rough and tumble affair, is muting the offense of Chris Eubank Jr.
Yeah, a little bit. And Eubank Jr. is not throwing enough volume, I don't think, overall. They would like more volume from him.
The left hook. Another left hook clips James deGale.
What we have learned, though, so far in this fight is that Eubank is able to hurt deGale, and we haven't seen deGale hurt Eubank at all.
Final minute of the 5th. Oh.
Well, deGale ran in, and you know, it's been the story of this fight.
We're the Marcus of Queensbury rules, Al. Isn't that what it's all about?
And I believe
here in the cradle of boxing, Rickman.
I believe that all started here, didn't it?
30 seconds remaining in the 5th. deGale moving to his left. Eubank closing the gap. Now Eubank going to the body, throws a right hand upstairs and another right hand.
That's the posture they would like from Eubank more often. And when he does it, he's able to control rounds.
deGale on his back foot as we go to round number 6. The bell goes to begin round number 6. We've used the word clash a lot. I know the fans would like to see these two warriors rock each other like the Casbah instead. And look at Eubank, continues to talk to deGale, coming forward.
You know, Jim McDonald said to deGale, calm. You know, you've got to kind of slow things down in your mind and not be doing all this rushing in and herky-jerky action and just throw your punches, but he's unable to do that so far.
When deGale lost to George Groves early in his career, there was a hue and cry for him to replace his trainer, Jim McDonald, but deGale is loyal. McDonald's remained in his corner. Together, they've gone on to become two-time champions at 168 pounds. There is something to be said about loyalty in this game of politics, Al, as Eubank lands a short right hand.
That was a beautiful counter right hand by Eubank Jr., and that's, to me, one of the headlines of this fight, that he has thrown that punch short. He told us when he trained for George Groves, astonishingly, he said his main sparring partner was a 6'7" cruiserweight, which even he was incredulous at the idea. And he was throwing all those wide looping right hands. He said, maybe that was the reason. Yeah. Now there's a straight right hand again by Eubank landing. So he's throwing that punch correctly.
And here in his 30th professional fight, he finally decides, I might want to bring in a full-time trainer. Nate Vasquez, of course, Eubank has spent many, many days and nights at the Mayweather Boxing Gym in Las Vegas.
Makes a pilgrimage there every year and spends a full month there and gets great sparring, and that's where he and Vasquez got together. And so far, that collaboration is working pretty well in the first part of this fight, I would say. And in this 6th round, Eubank Jr. has landed some very significant punches.
The left misses for deGale.
And again, deGale has just not thrown any jabs that would help set up the straight left hand.
The jab lands for Eubank. Final minute, and deGale just out of range, trying to reset. Finds himself along the ropes by utilizing that lateral movement to escape, and Eubank has to do a better job of cutting off the ring.
See, all of that movement would be great if deGale was using his jab and occasionally setting down and throwing some punches.
Eubank attacking with the right hand. deGale now with that front face lock momentarily.
One of the things Eubank Jr. is doing now is going downstairs to the body more, and that's vital.
We're at the midpoint of this 12-round, 168-pound affair. Second half of this 168-pound contest begins. Chris Eubank in the white trunks, James deGale in the black.
deGale for the last round has been mostly giving ground and trying to use lateral movement, but not punching off.
Again, a clash of heads. And Eubank has to try to cut off the ring somehow, Al. He has to do a better job of trying to corner deGale.
He does need to. However, not much offense as we look at my scorecard, and I have Eubank Jr. Building up a lead here in this fight. And again, some of those rounds close, so certainly could be debate about it. But
and let's be fair, you're also calling the fight, so it is an unofficial scorecard. But the story here in the second half is What would you like to see happen for each fighter in the second half?
Yeah.
What are the adjustments you would like to see?
For James DeGale, I think the jab is vital. He's got to start using the jab, and then the straight left hand can come behind it. He has not used that punch. Nice right hook there. Left hook from the right-handed stance. For Eubank, I think they want him to attack a little earlier in rounds than he's been doing, and when he does that, he's very effective.
And deGale uses the jab, went to the body, and then upstairs with the left hand. Midpoint of round number 7. Counter right hand by Eubank. And Eubank, just in order to get have an uptick in offense. Oh, and deGale stumbles forward. Hits the canvas, but that was a slip and not a knockdown.
Eubank Jr. cut in his last fight against George Grove. He had never been cut before, and he felt he reacted badly to it. He too is cut in this fight, but has not lost his composure.
Many people will tell you he reacted badly in every facet of that fight against George Groves. Was looking to just throw caution to the wind, but here now looking to put it on James DeGale. Overhand right clips DeGale along the ropes. And the veteran DeGale wanting to just hold on.
And we saw the uppercut a moment ago. It didn't land, but you can see the hint of that coming.
And now it's Eubank. There was another right uppercut that just missed. Eubank able to close the gap. DeGale ducks his head, misses that sweeping right hand. Eats the jab, right hand over the top, left hook by Eubank.
This is a seminal moment in this fight because Eubank Jr. is taking control in a way that he hasn't even before.
And it's the jab that is setting things up for Eubank here in the final seconds of the 7th round. Another 1-2 combination. Eubank just catches DeGale with the left and
that round by Chris Eubanks Jr. Had DeGale on the ropes, which we pointed out is not a place he wanted to be, and a straight right hand's very effective. 2 of them landing, and Eubank
is older than Eubank, but Eubank is the pressure fighter. DeGale has been in some hard battles, especially that savage draw with Badu Jack. While Chris Eubank coming on here in round at number 8.
Chris Eubank has not won on British soil in 4.5 years. First he had the loss against Truex and hasn't fought very much here in Great Britain.
I meant James DeGale.
Or James DeGale, I'm sorry. You knew what I meant.
I did know what you mean, and I'm coming to my partner's rescue.
You are my spokesperson.
Jab, right hand, another left hand by Eubank, closing the gap, and it's James DeGale who just wants to clinch and smother Eubank's offense.
And DeGale is smothering his own offense by rushing in and not coming in behind the jab and in no position there. See, that's a beautiful jab he just threw. But then he still lunged in and closed the distance in such a way that he couldn't
He has to fight from range. He has to go back to that Olympic gold medal pedigree.
I'll tell you another weapon that I talked about, Eubanks Jr.'s uppercut. On the inside, James DeGale has one of the best uppercuts in boxing. We haven't seen it one time when he's been on the inside with Eubank Jr.
Now switches back to southpaw, flashes the jab, and they come together again. Minute and a half remaining in the 8th. Back to orthodox stance for DeGale. Eubank goes on the hunt. Eubank trying to fire off punches.
Eubank Jr. was very sure in the comments he made before the fight that DeGale would fade in later rounds. If that's true, that's going to be a big problem because the impression is that James DeGale's probably behind in this fight.
Final minute of the 8th. And Eubank tripped and DeGale taking advantage of the situation. And you hear Eubank's corner saying, stop following them around the ring.
Yeah, Nate Vasquez wanting him to cut that ring off. He's not been able to do that effectively. However, because there hasn't been a lot of offense coming from DeGale, it still hasn't cost him.
Right hand off the break by Eubank. And now DeGale avoiding that. Oh, but he doesn't avoid that right hand. Another right hand by Eubank. Momentarily bothers DeGale.
make no mistake about that. And this is where and then Eubank Jr. at the end of the round, just rushing him. You know, just pressure from Eubank Jr. is enough to win him rounds. And when he pushes deGale back, even rushing him. You know, Eubank Sr. told us he remembered a fight where Stevie Collins just rushed him, and he said, I couldn't set myself. I lost that fight. It was almost a subliminal message.
That he's got to show him he's the boss. Well, he hasn't exactly been the boss tonight. Chris Eubank Jr. here as we begin round number 9. deGale from the southpaw stance and just crashes into Eubank.
And you know, here's the point. You reach a point in this fight where deGale has landed only a couple of good power punches, a couple of straight left hands. That punch will not land unless you set it up with a jab, and he's not doing it.
And Eubank trying to set up his offense with the jab, but it's immediately muted by the clinching. And Al Bernstein, you have Eubank running away with it.
I think Eubank Jr. is winning these rounds.
Good combination by Eubank.
And good body work there. And Nate Vasquez had told him, if you want to load up with punches, do it to the body. And when he has punched to the body, Eubank Jr. has been effective. You know, Eubank Jr. has been in 4 12-round fights. He's 2-2. James deGale is 8-2-1 in 12-round fights. He's been very effective, but he is fighting from behind, I think, in this fight.
And
right
those fights taking place again with him much fresher than he has looked here tonight. Again, 33 years of age, coming off of myriad injury problems and some hard miles in that squared circle. And you know, he has mentioned the word retirement, and when someone says that, Al, you have to wonder, is 1 foot already out of the ring?
Yeah, everyone says that when a fighter does. You think about that. Switching to righty again, but he hasn't stayed in that stance enough during a lengthy enough time to make it work for himself, James deGale.
Coming up on the final 60 seconds as deGale tried to cuff Eubank, but just a lot of grabbing, a lot of holding, a lot of lunging and clinching, and not very aesthetically pleasing.
And traditionally in these rounds, it's been the last 45 seconds where Eubank Jr. starts to rush him and puts a punctuation mark, a point on these rounds. We'll see if he does that here. This has been a closer round. I don't know that deGale's winning it, but it's been closer than several of the recent rounds.
Well, all the rounds have been close in terms of the real estate proximity because they're always clinching.
Well, physically close, yes.
Too much so. And Eubank trying to put together a combination, counter left by deGale. Jab, right hand just misses by Eubank. Chopping right hand, and Eubank landed a right at deGale, and Eubank picked the fresher, younger Eubank to prevail in this fight, and thus far he may be correct in his prognostication. It's still round 10 now, but you wonder just how much is left for James deGale, and obviously the slick boxing has gone by the wayside in this fight, and it's Eubank again just bullying him, and Eubank landing the punches that are thrown.
Alexander's trying to let them fight out there, and he did want to, but then he felt he had to come in. But while he was there, Eubank Jr. did some good body work. Well, George Grove, certainly no one knows these two fighters much better than he does, having, as you pointed out, having been in there with both of them. And
jab by deGale from a southpaw stance, but then goes to orthodox. But here in round 10, sense of urgency.
You know, we talk about James deGale fighting at range, and he certainly can do that. But we've seen James deGale in other fights against Butte, against Jack, against Medina, fight very effectively on the inside. He's not even doing that tonight.
No.
He just wants to hold in there.
Yeah.
And he's letting Eubank do whatever action does happen on the inside. Eubank Jr. said, I trained for a 12-round fight. I want a knockout, but I'm ready to go the full 12. And, of course, we're in the championship rounds now. We're headed toward them in any case. been the lunging left hand of deGale. That's been a recurring theme, and that's not going to get it done. He missed with that one.
Jab lands for Eubank, but doesn't follow up. Under a minute left in the 10th. deGale coming forward, then stops. Eubank ducks underneath, lands a short left to the body.
And good work in both corners, by the way, on those cuts of both men. You have to give both corner work men and cut men kudos for that.
Half a minute left in the 10th. Jab by deGale, follows up with a left hand, but too close. Oh, and that left rattled deGale, buckled his knee momentarily. And now Eubank going to the body. deGale trying to hold on. 15 seconds left in the round. Eubank stalking deGale. Right hand lands deGale, desperately trying to hold on. His glove touches the canvas. He's down for the second time in the fight.
Well, Eubank Jr. getting his second knockdown in this fight.
Oh.
That's the left hook that started the problems for James deGale.
Wild pursuit by Eubank.
And yeah, it was, and he has been very aggressive in coming forward, and sometimes hasn't been as composed in there, making James deGale feel what he feels. And ultimately, there would be a knockdown. I guess it's hard to tell, but is he so? It was called a knockdown. Now they believe in that corner. If I'm picking up correctly, this fight is still in doubt. And that James deGale is right there. I don't know. I'm not quite seeing it that way.
Round 11, blood trickling from the left eye of deGale. deGale going to the body, but then gets buckled again by Eubank. In round 2, the ropes held deGale from falling down. Oh, what an uppercut by Eubank!
It finally came.
And Chris Eubank looking to close the show, looking for that signature victory. And James deGale battered, bloodied, and bruised.
Eubank's been looking for that uppercut the whole fight. That one got there. Give James deGale credit for staying upright.
Oh, and the takedown, and emphatically. And the referee is deducting the point. deGale down in round 2, down in round 10, and here in round 11. Chris Eubank deducted a point for throwing deGale down, spinebuster style.
And of course, the impact that has is it may negate one of those rounds that was a 10-8 round from the knockdown.
Oh, and deGale just having issues with his footwork, stumbling. Counter right hand just misses. Now the jab, and Eubank again on the hunt.
And remember, this was a round in which Eubank Jr. has been doing very well. He could make this only a one-point round if he continued to move in this fashion.
And now deGale in the corner. Eubank trying to unload his offense, but a lot of clinching out. Whoa. Misses with that wild left hand, does Chris Eubank Jr. There's a left hand by deGale. Back to orthodox. Double jab by Eubank. Final minute of the 11th.
Eubank has used his jab a little bit more in the last few rounds. Now there again, awkward action, and Eubank Jr. had to be very careful not to repeat what he did before.
Eubank going on the attack again, but it is muted, it is thwarted by the clinching, the grabbing, the holding of James deGale. Not a lot of offense from the former two-time 168-pound champion. Final 20 seconds of the 11th.
Just not a lot of punches coming from James deGale. At the end of the day, that's the major thing. He's not punching that much.
Referee.
Here was the uppercut from James deGale. He's been looking for it. And he wound up, and man, did he land that punch. I'm shocked James DeGale was able to take that, and he landed yet a second one.
Wow.
Big punch by Eubank on the inside.
And they're frustrated by
he is, yes.
But you're right, you have to maintain your 12th and final round. Jab, counter right hand snapped DeGale's head back. DeGale on his bicycle here where he needs to really go for broke. It's Chris Eubank we've seen go for broke in the past, but according to our unofficial scorer, Al Bernstein, it's all Chris Eubanks Jr. and James DeGale comes forward with a rare combination.
It's possible someone's seeing this fight closer than that, and they could be, but I just don't think that James DeGale is getting there. And in that last round, it was dominated so much by Eubank that I couldn't make it a 10-8 round.
DeGale's had leg problems, shoulder problems, and the way he's fighting this fight, he better be careful he doesn't get injured again now.
Yeah, so the action is so awkward, and there's so many, situations where someone could be injured. Eubank wants to put pressure on this whole round. You can tell that's his game here, and that's what he wants to do.
DeGale!
That could have been a knockdown.
Yep. And now DeGale punching the back of the head, right hand by Eubank. And of course, Chris Eubank, well, our unofficial score has him far ahead. He wants to close the show. He wants that win in style.
And a reminder, it is unofficial, so perhaps judges are seeing this closer, but right now, Eubank Jr. is controlling this fight, and he has landed virtually all of the major power punches in this match.
And we have reached the final minute of this 168-pound contest, the domestic dust-up between former two-time champion and Olympic gold medalist James DeGale. At 33, is this his last hurrah? Chris Eubank Jr., 29, lands a sharp jab. He is looking for the biggest victory of his career, looking to step out of that long shadow, as you put it out, of his legendary father, Chris Eubanks Sr.
And I think this is it's been a very awkward fight, not, as you said, aesthetically pleasing, but Eubank Jr. has done mostly what he wanted to.
And he is putting punches together now as DeGale ducks. Rough and tumble affair, but it's Eubank throwing the shots. Eubank lugging James DeGale along the ropes. DeGale turning the tables momentarily. Grapple fest. And we will go to the judges' scorecards. 12 rounds in the books. DeGale and Eubank. Hostilities.
And here and you see the left hook landing, and this is a series of how he landed big power punches in that last round.
12 rounds of action. The judges are in agreement. We have a unanimous decision. Here are the score totals. Judge at ringside, Howard Foster scores about 114 to 112. Judge Jerome Ladd sees about 115 to 112. Judge Olena Pobivailo scores about 117 to 109. All three in favor of the winner. He is now the IBO Super Middleweight Champion, Chris Eubanks Jr.